Okay.
And we are back with Elliot StJames. This is one of the things that I'm really enjoying doing. I used to just do the Columbia month, and then that week they only got 30 minutes. So Cam stuck around the last time when we did Auto Taper month, and
Yep.
it ended up being a full episode, and I really enjoy doing that now. Where
Cool.
I think there are maybe people listening now as opposed to in the beginning where I was just doing it for my mom.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope people are listening. Yeah, you do a good job.
So at the end of that last um, episode, you were kind of starting to ask, I think, because I do everything from foundation to finish.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the kind of path you were walking down there, were you kind of gonna ask, how do you like, what do you get out of it as opposed to
Well,
what does everyone else see, or what were you thinking?
no, kind of like more like define drywaller on the job site. Like
Right.
it's been something that I've been around. My dad was a taper, and when I was young, and then he was making the tools at the same time, and then I've been around drywallers most of my life. The company's only 2 years older than I am, so I was pretty young.
Okay.
But part of that puts me at a disadvantage because I'm so used to it. You know what I mean? And then
Hmm.
it's almost too close to your face. You can't see. But then as I taped one full house, it's like a 5,000 square foot home. I taped it. I learned quite a bit there. And as I got older and I started to look at it a little differently, that these guys are kind of drywallers are unique. They're kind of special, like it's not, and everybody I talk to is like, man, I don't do drywall. Like guys that do construction rental, like I don't do drywall. I leave
Hmm.
that to, I hire a mudder, whatever the name they want to give them. And so I started to realize they're a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like it's not quite. They're like, yeah, I'll do my own even electrician work. They'll do like on a small job,
Hmm.
like a reno. They'll do a couple rooms, but they won't do the drywall.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, so I just want you to define that a bit for me, and I'd like to listen to it.
So for me, if you were to ask me what a quote unquote drywaller is, it
Mhm.
would be somebody that can metal frame,
Okay.
somebody that can hang board and then finish the drywall.
Sure.
So I think what we come into a lot more here, now that I've kind of taken a step back, I did all the rest of the stuff, did the site super stuff, and then kind of got a bird's eye view of everything.
Mhm.
I think you here, anyways, have framers, boarders, and finishers.
Sure.
Where in the beginning, all of those things were one thing.
Mhm.
But you don't want a guy like Phil framing ever. He is so good at what he does finishing.
Okay.
You
Okay.
would never put him in a framing position, right? Because it's
Sure.
he would just be better
Sure.
focused. Um, I also think that the drywall finishers are such a specific crowd, where you have to be very patient.
Yeah.
You've also got to be very delicate, but also still have that kind of framer get to work, kick ass all day,
Yeah.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, yeah.
Uh,
Framers are about footage, right? Like a lot of footage. You're getting paid by the foot, and so drywallers have to have that aggression as well, right?
yeah, I when I learned, it was commercial work, so I was framing
Mhm.
steel, and then I was boarding it all. But we always had tapers come in after, and
Okay.
they were like finishers. That's all they did. I
Mhm.
wanted to get into it, but it was kind of like, that's not for you. So drywall finishing kind of turned into this thing that I thought was really interesting, but I was never going to do it.
Okay.
So I started doing little things on my own, and then I would finish my own, which was really easy because I'm an excellent framer and an excellent boarder.
Okay. So
So
great corners. The screws are all indented properly. What
exactly.
what, what would you say? Why do people avoid doing drywall? Why do home rental guys, construction guys, I've been guys will tell you, I've been in construction my whole life. I will not do drywall. Why is that? It's too frustrating.
I think you see it all. So you can have a hiccup framing, and
Okay.
after a half decent border comes in, no one sees it. If you've got something funny,
Ah,
if you've got a vent in a wall that's all funny and you've got a frame around it, as long as
mhm.
everything is true and flat, it doesn't matter. You can't
Okay.
do that with drywall. because if you've got to butt something in all funny, you've now got to finish that. So the
Yeah.
finisher is going to come in, tell you it looks like shit, and then the painter's going to come in, and if it's not perfect, you're going to hear about it again. It's in my opinion, it's like trim work. It's like I'm a carpenter. I can stick frame a roof. I can build a jewelry box. Carpenter. I hate trim because it has to be perfect. Right? It's that finishing touch, and I think sanding has a lot to do with it. I think for why people don't want to do it, and I think there's a lot of guys that do their own drywall work, and then they try and bring in a finisher, and they're penalized for that. Right, where the finisher comes in and goes, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" Like, I you know, it's going to take me another day and a half. I got to charge you for that. It's just cheaper to let the professionals do what they do.
On the mudding side, it seems to be when people try it, it's a very humbling thing. It seems to be.
As a professional, it's still a humbling thing.
Okay. Yeah, because it's just like, it's like you, like we talked about in the last episode, it's you and your materials, your mud and your tape and your tools and all this board footage, and whatever problems are in that are your problems at that point. You can complain, but does it help?
No, and you're just complaining to yourself, right? So you can listen all you like to that, but there's nothing coming from it, right?
Okay.
Now, when I really dove into carpentry, like I said, because I really enjoyed framing, and then I understood that in my thought process was that's the most important part. If things are framed correctly, all the other trades touch that. Now that I've kind of dove into finishing, I almost feel like that's the most important part now, because if something's framed incorrectly, I can still fix it.
You can float it out and fix it, or shim it. How do you fix it? Help me out on that one. I understand.
Yeah, you totally can. You come up to a wall where they've crowned something backwards. You can kind of cut into a crowned stud and force it back. You can shim. You can replace. You can, you know what I mean? When you're boarding, when the board's on the wall, you're adding, as opposed to fixing.
You can't subtract really from a gypsum board.
No. No, you can't. I've had some interesting, like, you'll see pictures where guys will like rasp out the back edge of a board and put it in, you know what I mean? But that's all butchery.
I don't like that. I don't like the thought of that. So one of the most interesting things I was talking to Nick about was, like, we've got all these drywall contractors out there and hangers and finishers that are not corporate. But the supply chain has become corporate. Before, it wasn't that way before. Before, it was a lot of owner operators at the drywall supply yard, and a lot of owner operators that made their tools or their mud as well. I mean, they maybe have 50 employees or 30 or 20, but they were, they were pretty small. And now, is this 25 years of acquisitions later, it's changed, and it's an interesting mix of, like, corporations with these small individual operators, right? Where it's working, but it just changed so much over the years.
So I'm building a pretty good relationship with Brad Kennedy. We've had some really good conversations. And I do see what you mean when you're talking about corporate. When you talk to Brad about certain things, he goes, "This is how we do things," but that doesn't make any sense. You know, where it's more personable. These are guys that were blue collar at one point. You know, what huge business person is going to have me in their office? Like, we are polar opposites when it comes to that kind of thing. As opposed to at CSR, they do things a little bit differently, but it's geared towards the workers, not the piece of paper at the end of the month that states XYZ. So a lot of things that they do don't make sense on paper, but that's why they're doing so well, because they're a little bit more focused on what you're getting, not how much it costs. And, having the inventory that he has, go find anywhere that will tell you that's a good idea. to
Mhm.
have that kind
Oh
of
no, no.
inventory sitting around.
The accountants would want to kill you.
Absolutely.
The bean counters would be really mad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. That's there's no reason for him to have 25 10-inch flat boxes
Yeah.
other than to facilitate us.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to come in tomorrow and buy 6, he can do that.
There are some chains that are doing a good job of it. They've got like 2 or 3 distribution centers, or and they're reloading their stores every week. But it's just been this interesting transition from owner operator serving the drywall contractor,
Mhm.
who are just interesting, and it's just a big change. I mean, we're not we don't even pretend to be corporate anymore. Like,
Yeah.
do I go to meetings with companies? Of course.
Yeah.
If a corporation watched this podcast between you and I, and didn't want to do business with me because of it, I would be okay with that.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? I just don't. We all need the corporations in this world. Like, if I'm going to fly on an airline, I hope it's really well run, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
Air Canada or United Airlines. I hope that they have a really good system and really good benefits for their workers and super happy employees. Like, so I'm not against corporations at all. I just find it an interesting mix, like small town drywall contractor and
Yep.
corporation. I just find it interesting. That's all.
Yeah, and it is kind of this symbiotic relationship too, right? Because one does not happen without the other.
Nope.
You can have a corporation, but if they have consumables and nobody's consuming them, they're done. And
True.
if there's no one to buy the
True.
consumables from, and you can't fly it there, and somebody have their shit together with inventory, and
No, you're right.
then we wouldn't have it either.
The
So
customer still dictates the inventory. You're correct about that. Yeah, and the
yeah,
service level they do. Yeah.
and it is very interesting. I'm kind of happy you brought that up, because it's especially the way things are going now. Because I always said construction is kind of like the island of misfit toys, where and when it gets to big money, there is no island of misfit toys in a boardroom somewhere making $1 million decisions, right?
No.
But there is this kind of handshake between the two where it's starting to get kind of interesting. Now, like, we went down to Intex, and
Okay.
during the day, you really do see a lot of that corporate. You kind of I don't want to say the song and dance of it all, but that is
Sure.
a very business
Yep.
setting. I think a lot of the stuff that got taken away from that happened afterwards. And the more I'm seeing this industry kind of behind that curtain, I think a lot of it does, where the communication between a big company and either the end user or a company like you guys, there has to be a hell of a sales guy to buffer.
Yeah, because you've got in the boardroom, and you worked with a corporation before, didn't you? I think you mentioned that to me.
Yep. Yeah. I work
okay.
sales and yeah.
Right. We talked about that. Yeah. So you've got a boardroom, and you have investors or private equity or a public company, and you've got them wanting 10% residual growth, right? They want
right.
So if you did $10 million in sales this year, they want additional 10% next year, which would obviously be $11 million.
Mm-hmm.
And the next year, they want the other million and another 100, right? So they want 12.1 the next year. And where this is the interesting clash I'm talking about, is where you've got the small town contractor who just wants to do a great job for the builder or whomever he gets paid by. And you've got these corporations trying to get 10% residual growth, whether it's there or not. Right. And I know these guys feel it too in the boardrooms. I know they do. Like, they don't like it either, all of them. But they're pushed out there to do that, or they risk their employment or whatever's on the line, promotions or bonuses or whatever it is. But it's just an interesting world, because that never was like this. This is what I'm trying to say. Before, there'd be a guy named Rick in Reno, Nevada, and he owned a drywall yard. Hey, Rick, and you could phone him. You could walk in and talk to him. His son probably worked there, or his brother. And they bought gypsum from the bigger guys, but they were the middleman between the big guys and the end user. But now that's changing, where the corporations own the distribution houses as well, and the tool companies like ours too. It's just interesting, because you've got like people who work with their hands, and they put every bit of mud on that wall, right? But you've got, like you said, you got to have a hell of a salesman between that. Yeah, it's just interesting.
And going going both ways too, right? Because you know, somebody coming from the corporate end of it, trying to have a conversation with a bunch of drywallers isn't probably going to go very well. But also, a bunch of drywallers walking into a boardroom is not going to work either.
Not going to go very well either. No.
Yeah, so it
No.
is very interesting when you kind of break it down like that.
Yeah.
When you were on Nick's podcast, you said double-breasted as
Yeah. An older term.
Yes.
Older term. It's still out there. So before, there used to be the largest drywaller in town would have a dispute with the board yard or whatever, and they would buy board direct from usually a smaller one of the producers.
Right.
And they would supply themselves and a few others that didn't mind buying from them. They're out there. There's the odd one left in the south, the southern states, but yeah, that was the thing before. And that's what I mean. It used to be so the USG, or well, I mean, maybe not USG, but like CertainTeed's changed their name a bunch of times and been acquired and stuff. But there were a couple brands out there that would sell to these guys, you know,
Right.
smaller guys. Yeah, and they would. It was just interesting. They've often now been bought up now and acquired and stuff. But
I always wonder.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's just that in a town, so you don't really have a choice. Even if you're a large corporation or a small business, if you pick a town like let's just make up an area.
Sure.
Let's say 100 miles out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Just make up an area. Don't even know a name right now. Texarkana, it's on the border of Texas and Arkansas. Forgive me if it's not 100 miles away from there, but it's a small town. Now, there's probably a drywall yard there, but if you get in a small enough town, I think there's 1 yard there or 2 yards there. That biggest drywaller dictates that town. Who he buys from dictates that town, because if he's getting 60% of the drywall, you can't. Without him as a customer, you can't be open.
Right.
It's always been kind of an interesting relationship between, and especially now that corporations have gotten involved, because what are you going to do if you don't have that customer or the second guy behind that company, right?
Yeah, and there are definitely guys that just aren't for sale too. Like if they don't like the song you're singing, we're not doing business, and it's
right.
It's just for that. You know, and there are guys out there that not quite integrity, but kind of integrity is always been the way of it. So you rub them wrong once and you're done. Like it's not going to tank your huge business, but you're not selling anything here, right?
You're done in that town, right?
So that's very interesting.
So there still is power in the drywall contract and drywall finisher. There still is a power there. The hard part about drywall finishers is you've got the large corporations like that can do you know, a football stadium or a brand new university wing or whatever. You've got them that have hundreds of employees or hundreds of subcontractors, or they're usually hundreds of union employees. And then you've got the 20-man crews, and then you got the 5-man crews, and then you got the 1-man crews.
Right. And
to market to drywallers as a drywall taping tool manufacturer is very difficult because the sub trades aren't listed in the phone book. I mean, there's no phone book anymore, but you know what I mean? They're just Sean with a bazooka. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do I reach you? That's what these podcasts are important, and the internet became, social media became really important. But yeah, they're an interesting group to market to, right? Because the corporate guys, they usually went with Ames, like the Ames stores, because they could get the service levels, and they had and then there's we usually fall kind of below that in the 20 to 30, 40-man crews, and then below that, obviously, right down to the owner operator. But
of course, yeah,
interesting to market to the drywall finisher, because it's just they're not that defined. They're not as defined as one would think. Because what is your identity as a drywaller? You have a few employees?
No. So
no.
If I go in on something where I'll take an assist, I bring in guys that own their own businesses. They invoice me, and that's the way that we do it. It just keeps everything cut and clear, right?
So how would I find Sean? How would I find Brawley's Dad Construction? I mean, you're probably on the web, or
you kind of don't, and that's the interesting part of what you're talking about, right? Like word of mouth, on my Instagram, but I don't want a website. I don't want to be doing things like a GG, right? Like because I did that first year. I was on all kinds of stuff, and you're turning more work down than what you're taking, and you're spending more time saying no than you should just be working, right? So
if you're a good drywall finisher, you shouldn't really have to have too much of an identity in the world, right? Like
that's right.
Not really.
But it makes it impossible for guys like you to reach out. Right now, I will say this: you guys have done an amazing job bridging that gap, though.
Brian.
Jumping onto like social medias and things like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
it's cutting clear who you guys are there.
Yeah.
As,
Yeah. We had to. It was like because we can't like people have you can't find your customer.
mhm.
Now, before that, what we kind of come up with at our factory was like if we can't find these people, but somehow we're getting them through the distribution of the drawway yards and word of mouth and different things, what should we do? It was kind of a thing about 15 years ago before the web was too prominent.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, well, why don't we just like we were making a good tool, but like why don't we make great tools
Yes.
and why don't we put our name all over them?
Yep.
And carve it in, and like if you make the tool wrong, it's horrible because your name's carved into it, right?
So yeah, yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
you're naked, right? But let's make them right. Let's have anyone that we make them wrong, let's give them a new one or have them call it, like fix it,
Yeah.
put our name on it. And that was what I realized that was our real only opportunity it was our tools, was our really only, that was our marketing opportunity, was the actual product.
Yep.
But then the internet came along. We'd already done that. Not the internet, but social media. And that was real neat. The engagement that Aaron started with Phil, and then it's evolved to having an engagement with you and other people. And it's just been awesome. It's just been great. It's been, I get into those drywall videos, and like we talked about when we were together a couple months ago, it's like, I start thinking it's like snowboarding or something. Like, I think it's that cool. But then I'm like, wait a second, this is drywall. But like, I think it's like that cool, like a Burton snowboard commercial. I'm like watching people do stuff, and I'm like, wait a second, it's drywall. But I'm proud of it, and I think people that do it are as well.
So that's what got me back taping. I was done with it. I hated it. It took a long time. It didn't pay because it was all hand tools, right? I didn't really have the experience that I did everywhere else. Like if I was going to spend 2 weeks taping something, I wasn't going to make hardly anything because I didn't know the tools existed, for one. And so I was hand taping everything and then sanding, constantly sanding. This was before I even knew there was automatic sanders. It was probably before automatic sanders were out, to be honest.
Okay.
And then Instagram came along, and the brand of Columbia, if you go back to the first podcast, Columbia Tools reminded me of skateboarding in high school.
Sure.
It was like one of those things that I wish that I could do that I probably won't, but man, does it look cool. And then you start kind of looking into it and you're like, oh, I could totally do this. Right. Sure. And then you get your hands on something and you're like, okay, I think I can do this. And then you start putting yourself out there. Well, now there's this like enormous amount of people giving you a high five for doing it, and you start looking at their stuff and it's even cooler than what you were doing. And like I really, just like you said, snowboarding, like it's cool. I like it.
Cool. Like the I thought it was super cool when like Lydia and Leah were doing it, like showing how it's done, and then they were like really original to the beginning of it, and then they've moved on to different things, and they're doing like all sorts of brands, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then, but it's just like it's like all you guys like found each other doing work alone. You're all doing work alone, right?
Yeah.
But you've created this community that you found each other, and you can discuss. What do you discuss? I mean, technique, or you guys already know how to do the job, but like, talk materials, or
you're just kind of talking shit. Like it's when the first time that I talked to Cam for any extended period of time was on the podcast. Okay. He just hopped on and we talked like we had been talking our whole lives, because and I'm finding that more and more when it comes to finishers, because I think you just hit it on the head. We're all living the same life like that, where we all go to work. There is a certain like level of individual where you've got the work ethic. It's you all have a lot of things in common before you even know each other. And I feel like people that are humble and people that are doing positive things for the community, you're going to have even more of the same characteristics with somebody like that. Sure. Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, when you first start talking to people, how do you do your butt joints? How are you not sanding so much? Are you using this product? Have you used that product? So I've talked to people that are like, yes, I absolutely change my blades on the angle heads because it needs to be done. If you talk to Cam about it, he throws it in the garbage and buys another one.
I know.
And that's totally fine too, but it's those real world opinions. That's kind of more what you talk about. But then very quickly you feel like you're friends, right? So then you're talking about everything. So yeah, it's talking about Leah and Lydia. That was another real cool part because when I hopped in was basically when Lydia was getting started. So as you're watching things, you're like, man, this is so cool and that's so cool, and the branding and and then there's also women kicking ass doing this. Tall people, short people, left, right. Like it's this is not a specific thing.
No.
Like anyone can do this, and they are. And it was just holy shit, so can I. And it really is a homey thing, right? And the more time I spend with you guys, like you're great. Every once in a while you can spend an evening with somebody. It's very different than spending a week with them. You know what I mean?
Well, you can't hide who you are for you can do it for a dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it for a dinner. People have made careers of it, but no, I think when I was younger, I think I wanted to be kind of a corporate type person. I think that's what I thought I wanted to be. Maybe you did too. I'm not sure, but it's not that that's bad. It's not there's anything wrong with that. It's just as you get older, you realize all that matters is your product. It could be your product on the wall, like you do. It could be your product in aluminum, like I do. You could literally name your company, Idiot Corporation. And if you had great product, people would buy it. And that's what I kind of realized. It has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't have to do with the clothes you wear. I mean, you shouldn't go make a bad impression. Why would you do that? Why would you sue yourself? Like, why would you do that, right? But beyond that, all that matters is the product. Because I've met some really good people in this world that do like amazing work in whatever field they're in, and they don't present as you think they would present necessarily, right? But when you're younger, you think it all has to look a certain way. And as I got older, I started to realize all that matters is the product. Like be it for you at finishing the drywall, be it for me, that's all that matters in the end. And it's like, who do I buy from? Who do we buy from? All of our aluminum bar, all of our castings, all of our springs, and we buy from people that are solid and deliver. And if we need a favor, we can call, and they'll be like, "Can we get 20 shipped right away?" And that's that's who we buy from. That's who we deal with. And so it just, when you're young, you just think it's about something. You think it's about image or size or something like that, right? Which is probably there's probably a joke in there somewhere, but image and size. But as you get older, you realize it's just all that matters are your customers happy? Are you delivering value? Are they getting, for the dollars they pull out of their wallet, are they getting more than at the end of the day? Are they getting more than what they're paying? Or more than the competitors offering, or however you want to scale that. So for when someone hires you to do a house, are they getting the same or more? I would suggest more.
Totally. So. Yeah, and that resonates with me because when I started working, I got into sales. I really had that. I'm gonna try and run the world this way in a suit. I liked wearing a suit. I was very good at it. But at the end of the day, I was mentally exhausted every day. So when I bridged that gap between building things and being mentally exhausted all the time, I was like, okay, so it doesn't matter what I look like or how I act. As long as I'm in this buffer, my work will speak for itself.
The work has to talk.
And then somewhere along the lines, I had enough with everyone else's above me and went, okay, so my work speaks for itself. I could just be me. Like and if that means I roll out of bed and put yesterday's fucking pants on and go to work again, it doesn't matter. Right. And some people think that's awesome or whatever, right? So that kind of evolution of you can literally have a good product, whatever it is, and just be yourself. That's attractive to some people too, where they're like, I kind of like being myself too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I think the internet's changed that too, because uh, I think people want authenticity. I think they do.
yes,
Uh, and what they don't want that. Do you remember like on The Simpsons, there was like that pitch man?
yes, yeah.
Yeah, like that guy, like that was like the '80s kind of thing, right? And I think TV was like God back then, because I mean,
Yep.
you and I were young back then. But I think we want to relate now to the people that we
Mhm.
follow, or yeah, we want to relate.
Yeah, you're like your
Yeah,
peers. Yeah.
sure, sure. And I think we should just all be ourselves. If I have to sit through one more dinner, right, where I won't do it anymore. I just come
Yeah.
as I am, and then if it's not liked, then we probably shouldn't do business together. Or
Yeah.
we can still, maybe we still can if you don't like totally how I come across. I'm not. It won't be me that doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever had anybody judge you for being you?
Um, you know what? Yeah. So there were a bunch of people. I said this on my stories the other day. There were a
Yeah,
bunch of people that told me not to put my slogan on the back of my gear that
sure.
says do your fucking job. And they're like,
Yeah.
this is gonna turn people off, man.
Mm,
And I was like, good. That's me. That's my brand. That's what we do
mm,
here. If
mm.
you don't want to work with me, I don't want to work with you, right?
But you know what's funny is when behind closed doors, when you hear people talk, that's how they talk.
100%.
I I know some pretty uh you know lawyer type well-to-do people that
Hmm.
when they're let down by a subcontractor or a contractor, that's how they talk.
Yeah.
Like the landscaper doesn't do their job or whatever, they are just like, do your effing job, do your fucking job, right? And
So,
that's really how we talk, right? That's how we think. Even if it doesn't come out of our mouth, that's what we think. So if you're
mhm.
willing to put that out there on our shirt, I would suspect that's what you're about, because who would put that on a shirt?
Oh, and then
That,
not do their
that's not
job.
going to do it.
Yeah. It's fucking, yeah, nobody's doing
Right?
that.
Yeah.
It's
That's what I thought.
it's shocking the amount of people that stop me when I'm out and about.
I was
Um,
wondering. I was
it,
wondering
what,
because I've worn the hoodie. No one
yeah.
stopped me, but I don't wear it that often. I have worn it, and I don't even, I forget I'm wearing it. I forget it says that on the back. So sorry, carry on.
So I'll constantly hear be humble and do your fucking job, and then I'm waiting for the like, okay, here we go, and when they do do your fucking job, you can kind of hear them like, huh? Like they and some people mention it. They're like, where did you get that? And I'm like, well, this is mine. This is my company, is my brand. And some people have asked, can we get it or whatever.
Yeah.
When Cam and I had that time in the airport on the
Yeah.
way home, I bet you this lady was 70, and we were in the uh elevator together, and she said she liked it.
Cool.
Yeah, I've had obviously blue collar guys. It really does resonate
No,
with.
no, no. But even a 7-year-old woman, man, whoever,
Oh yeah,
they're thinking it. Like, they tell their grandkid who's 10 to go do something, and they don't do it properly. That's what they're thinking. I mean, not everyone, but you know what I mean. They're thinking, do it.
and
Make your bed. Make your bed. Fold
yeah,
whatever.
do your
Do your,
homework or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I think it kind of starts nice, where it's be humble and treat everyone the same, and then it says do your fucking job afterwards. So it does kind of send the message.
Yeah.
But I mean, years ago, there's no way I would have done that.
Okay.
It's the more you
Okay.
talk to people, the more you figure out this kind of community that we're doing. Like there are guys with the knuckle tattoos, right? And it's like,
Sure.
listen, if you don't like it, go away.
Sure.
Like there's
Sure.
so much work here, it's almost unbelievable.
Well, when I mess up on a tool, and
Yep.
in a factory, it's not made right for whatever reason. An oversight, I don't know, a damage in shipping, something either in the factory or between the factory and the person getting it, something that's not working on that tool, which most of the time would be us. If that happens, they are like, send me another fucking tool,
Mhm.
like fix my effing problem. Like they're not happy,
Yeah, figure
right?
it out. Yeah.
but they're saying do your fucking job is what they're saying. That's what they're saying.
It's
And I'm in agreement with them that I have to do my fucking job.
yeah.
I gotta fix that problem. I gotta make it right. And as soon as we say we're gonna make it right, 99% of the time it's completely squashed, other than they're not happy about the downtime,
Yeah.
right? Like I can't fix that. We usually send a few t-shirts or something to, hey man, sorry for making a mistake. But that's what they're saying when they call. They're not
Yeah.
calling saying, oh, I just have a wee problem with my tool. It was
Yeah.
probably just an oversight on your part. Oh, it's not a problem.
Nobody's that understanding. Yeah.
No. So that's why I think it resonates with people. And I think the fact that your slogan has be humble, treat everybody the same. That's if it didn't have that, it may be a little bit more harsh.
Be a little
But
more
because it,
aggressive. Yeah.
yeah, but because because you like treat everybody the same, but people are like they're disarmed by that. They're like, oh,
Mhm. I
because
I live by that, right?
yeah,
No, nobody cares. I don't care what other people have. Are they happy? Right.
mhm,
That's more or less what I look at.
sure,
So that's all, in my opinion, is what is being humble, right? Are you
yeah,
happy with what you got? Great. If you're not, go do something to get what you want.
for sure.
Treating everyone the same is huge.
Yeah,
We would have real big corporate guys coming into the stores that I was doing sales in, and I would do
sure.
nothing differently,
Okay.
because it's like, I'm not putting on tap shoes for this guy. He's
Yeah,
paying me to do my job. I'm going to show him what I do every day. If he doesn't like that, he can fire me. But I'm not going to show him something different today. And when I see a janitor, I speak to that person the same way I spoke to the other person. We're all the
sure,
same here, right?
sure.
At least we all start the same. I do treat people very differently, but it's usually according to them.
Sure,
Um,
sure. Yeah, yeah. You start off. Yeah, I mean, what did one person tell me? I let them teach me how they want to be treated, something like
mhm,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm a blank canvas, and then and I work off of them. I've heard that, and they've taught me how to treat them. And if it's negative, it's negative. It's positive, it's positive. I mean, there's
Mhm,
probably some interpretation in that, but no, people. We got some surveys we had to fill out, like for our work, and different things for European sales and stuff, and I had to think about it. They're asking about diversity in our workplace, and
yeah.
like I had to think about it because I don't even think of people anymore. Not that I ever really did, but as being from Thailand or being from
Mhm,
uh, Syria or being from Australia or being from wherever. I just don't even think of it anymore. Maybe it's an age thing. I don't know, but uh, I definitely have fallen into what you're talking about, where I treat everybody the same, and I enjoy even learning from other people if it's something I just don't understand, like
mhm.
a religious or cultural thing I don't understand. I usually need to be educated because I probably have it wrong usually. So
Oh,
did you live in a very multicultural area, right?
I do. We got
Yeah.
less than a minute here. We're going to go
Sure.
on a break, and we
Yeah.
will be right back.
Okay.